Dr. Jordan Peterson, renowned psychologist and professor, has often been called political, and yes, he has been thrust into the political arena because of challenging a bill that threatened his rights, as well as standing up for his rights and backing his opinions publicly and not backing down when under fire. While he didn't necessarily choose this path, he is most certainly utilizing the platform he has now to help educate people, amongst other things. Dr. Peterson has received criticism from a select few fans lately, for a reason you might not have expected, and I will get to why in a moment. I want to say first that a few YouTubers have wholly misrepresented this story for reasons all their own. I want to mention one YouTube channel in particular, The Progressive Voice, a channel run by Sahil Habibi, and formerly known as X Unlimited Mags X. Mr. Habibi posted a video framing this exact situation in a way that seemed to match his political narrative, which can be expected of politically affiliated channels. However, I feel that it is not necessarily morally right as anyone with a journalistic endeavor to take the news and twist it in such a way. This channel attempted to make it sound as if masses of Jordan Peterson's fan group had made an exodus away from him and had ultimately found him to be fraudulent or a grifter or any one of those terms. And that simply isn't true. However, there is an interesting story here, and I will get to it now. Dr. Jordan B. Peterson, psychologist and professor, has received criticism from a select faction of his fan group recently for having toured and having events hosted in some places where vaccine passports were mandated. Following the iconoclastic tendency to stick to his guns even when it makes him a standalone or a part of a very small minority, Peterson announced in May that, having contracted the COVID-19 virus over the summer and yet still not having enough antibodies to prevent reinfection, he was going to get vaccinated, and that he did. He was matter-of-fact about it and included a message that most of us could agree with, that he looked forward to and wished for a swift reopening of his community. This was said in a Twitter post, which he left up even in the face of rampant criticism from fans who also happen to be anti-vaxxers. He sees the separation between his own health and his politics, as we all should. Dr. Peterson has often been a critic of Prime Minister Trudeau and other officials, and their decisions to create and enforce vaccine mandates and vaccine passports. He is a critic of the government taking liberties with our liberties, so to speak, both in the US and in Canada, under the wholesome blanket guise of health and safety. Quite the pretense. That is. He is a critic of policy, not of vaccines themselves. He has never claimed to have medical credentials or qualifying experience in the medical field. He has, however, made a point of surrounding himself with friends in medical places, so to speak, and has been open about learning from them and taking their advice with a grave seriousness. He has also stated that he had a reliable source letting him know that COVID policies were unfortunately being driven by opinion polls instead of medical data. Politics came down to politics once more, as they never fail to. He received criticism for his book event being hosted in venues, like I said, where vaccine passports were required in multiple cases while on his US tour. He has since responded. He booked these events close to a year prior and had no way of knowing what policies were going to be in place. Furthermore, YouTubers such as Sahil Habibi of The Progressive Voice, formerly X Unlimited Mags X, have gone after him. Habibi says in his video that since a vaccine passport was in place for the venue, it must mean then that Jordan Peterson has been vaccinated. Way to go, detective. Your deductive reasoning is on point. However, with little research, it isn't hard to see that Dr. Peterson is not anti-vaccine per se. So he's in no way contradicting himself by doing so. He doesn't approve of our rights being taken away and our personal choices around our health, as well as faith or lack thereof in our ability to make responsible and informed decisions about our health, being placed in the hands of governments at the provincial, state, and federal level. If this YouTuber had done his research, also, he would have found that Jordan Peterson already stated that he got his vaccine, loud and clear on Twitter, just because some of his fans disagreed with his decision, which is really ludicrous considering that they are criticizing a person's personal decisions around their health, which isn't that where they are supposedly claiming to be championing health and one's right to make decisions with regards to their health? Anyways, just because a select few of his fans were angry about that, it doesn't mean that he was in any way contradicting himself or that that represents any significant portion of his fans losing faith in him, or however they put it. Anyways, Jordan Peterson's openly posted about getting his vaccine because it was necessitated for him just like it was for so many of us, even if we felt funny about it being required, or just about it in general. Using vaccine passports is something many of us probably aren't privy to or weren't privy to and aren't super stoked about. However, many people have still done it so that they can move freely about their communities. Furthermore, Peterson is a Canadian citizen on an American tour. There have been instances where other international citizens in the public eye have had to make compromises to be able to remain in the States and not be cancelled or viewed ridiculously as some kind of terroristic influence. I recall an interview where singer, songwriter, and producer Grimes, or Claire Boucher, who is a Canadian, implied that she was censoring herself for the sake of being allowed her liberty and autonomy as far as performing in and living in the United States. She said that she was still trying to get her green card and simply gave some cookie cutter answer with an undercurrent of sarcasm in response to a question after hesitating and deciding not to say what she was going to say completely, clearly not able to speak freely in the country that has prided itself on being the land of the free. Thanks a lot, cancel culture. Nobody wants to, best case scenario, be subject to a cancel culture witch hunt, and worst case scenario, be barred from a country. Her exact quote in decidedly was, "I love America. I know you're not supposed to say that, but I think everyone who cares about art comes here, and all the best art in the world is here. So please let me have my green card, Mr. President Biden." This was a verified and genius interview. You can find it on YouTube. She's discussing her song Dark Side and her new album My Name is Dark. Interesting fact, both Grimes and Jordan Peterson attended McGill University in Montreal. As far as the reasons that Dr. Peterson has given for his vaccination, he stated both on Twitter and in interviews that he had to be tested when leaving Canada and coming back in. So there's travel restrictions. And then furthermore, he felt he would be left alone and left unbothered by policy if he was vaccinated. He has said that he feels this was a foolish assumption, as now they're imposing more and more policies and mandates that are further affecting his life and the rest of our lives. He also stated clearly that it was just for his health. Like I said, many of us have gotten vaccinated and gotten vaccine passports or adhered to those rules. For one, so that we can move freely about our communities, and secondly, ultimately, to avoid ticketing and even criminal charges or incarceration. I mean, that's a huge thing. There's also several inconveniences that we're bypassing. Like I said, that's not to say that we'll be left alone completely. Also, there are people on Twitter suggesting that Jordan Peterson should have really, quote, made a statement and canceled his events. I recall him being criticized in the past for having to cancel an event or for people buying tickets and then not ending up getting everything that they expected because of some cancellation. So, I mean, when you're in the public eye, you're sort of damned either way. I can guarantee if he would have canceled, that he would have had plenty of people calling him out with a lot of different arguments as to why that somehow makes him inauthentic or makes him greedy or whatever. You know, they're saying that a lot of them are saying that he could afford to cancel it. Well, what about his fans? Can they afford for it to be canceled? I mean, I just think people are oftentimes projecting their political viewpoints onto people in the public eye that they might admire or that they might agree somewhat with. But just because you agree regarding one thing with a person doesn't mean that you'll see eye to eye on every single issue. And there's beauty in that. How uninteresting would it be if all of us just had, select A, B, C, or D for our respective viewpoints? And where would political discourse come in? Where would we learn from? Where would we gain perspective from? It would be pretty dull, and ultimately I think that it would lead to our downfall, not only intellectually, but there's a lot of infrastructure, there's a lot of things built around people having ideas and speaking out, and really one can debate without becoming heated or character assassinating, and people are forgetting that. Civil discourse is very important to the political process, and as well as other processes. I think that we're very fortunate to be able to bounce our ideas off of people and to have them bounce their ideas off of us. It's important to have a sounding board and to be able to bounce ideas around in your head and outside of your head. As far as the YouTubers, I feel like, this is directly for you, Progressive Voice. We're all entitled to our opinions, but nursing extremism by reading something somewhere and then jumping on the bandwagon and posting a video about it without doing any research in order, to effectively form your own opinion isn't the best way to go about political commentating, no matter which side of the argument you're on, no matter what party you're partial to or involved in. And it leads to a situation where people are expecting the world around them to bend and even break to match their distortions and to nurture their thinking fallacies until they're grounded irreversibly and to get some kind of emotional validation from their politics. Saying that all of his fans are realizing he's a fraud or that they're losing faith in him. I'm sure that tidies up and matches well with your own specific brand of politics. And with the select few anti-vaxxers that look at anyone's Twitter post through their own filters, or select few whatever their views are. I think it's wrong for people to believe that just because they want someone to believe something, they can become angry and throw out all of these accusations and buzzwords when something said doesn't adhere to their specific their theories or their political views. I think it's a healthy exercise to stay calm through something like that. Anyways, thank you, Sahil Habibi. Thank you, Grimes. Thank you, Jordan Peterson. You've given me things to think about and talk about. Sahil Habibi. In the beginning of the Progressive Voices video, Sahil starts talking about how his main sort of like personal induction into the idea of Jordan Peterson being a grifter was this fellowship program, this MBA fellowship program with the Acton School of Business that in Austin, that a lot of Jordan Peterson fans were saying that they felt scammed because of. So I want to straighten that out because he didn't research this either. He has another video on it, and he's wrong about it. So the Acton School of Business in Austin is the brainchild of Jeff Sander. He has a lot of other projects. He's pretty brilliant. And it's been created in conjunction with input from Jordan Peterson, and it's been called America's most unique MBA program. America's most unique MBA program. And Jordan Peterson announced a statement where he said, "I am pleased to announce today the establishment of a partnership with the Acton School of Business under the stewardship of Acton co-founder and master teacher Jeff Sandifer. Acton curriculum provides an institutional analog to the psychological content I have been sharing in my online videos, podcasts, and books. The MBA's emphasis on individual responsibility and adventure parallels my work's focus on maturity, simultaneous service to the individual, family, and broader community, and the relationship between meaning, discipline, and vision. The Acton curriculum is grounded in the Socratic method. It teaches spur learning by asking questions, not by answering them. The students also self-govern and self-organize, developing their own code of conduct at the start of the session. The Acton School of Business ranked number 1 for most competitive students 7 years in a row, and Best Administered Program in 2019's Princeton Review has a uniquely philosophical and entrepreneurial spirit, with goals distinct from traditional business schools. All students, for example, enroll in the Contemplative Life of Meaning course, during which they are required to deeply examine and assess their personal vision and strategies for its implementation. Acton's enrollees are rarely interested in working for a large corporation or similar institutions to schools. So his statement is done. Sorry, but I'm pretty sure. But sorry. Anyways, so basically the people enrolled in the school, the article that his statement. I just clicked on another article basically, and it had said in my notes that that most of the enrollees there were not wanting to work for a huge institution. They want to found their own personal ventures and engage in more like startup entrepreneurial stuff. And so the plan was to identify and support 50 Peterson Fellows who would work with different teams to prototype different like innovative educational programs and work alongside successful entrepreneurs who had already sort of built up their businesses and real world hands-on challenges, all as part of earning their MBA in entrepreneurship. The candidates were being selected through an online application process that assesses their intellectual ability, their academic background, their personality, and their strategic philosophy. And then, so those who were accepted were to first complete the online portion and then attend a 5-month in-person portion at the Acton School of Business in Austin. This was to take place from February 25th to December 14th of 2019, and then for the online portion, and then the on-campus portion was supposed to begin on August 5th. And successful applicants were going to be awarded a combination of scholarships and student loans to help cover the cost of tuition. And so people weren't super stoked about it. There's a few different reasons. Okay, I'm by no means talking about any like majority. This isn't a representation of the entire group, but a few people, mostly people who didn't follow through with actually pursuing the program once they were accepted because they were suspicious about like how promptly they were accepted. Mind you, this is kind of like, the program was still in its infancy. That was only the first round. It's not a scam. I mean, it's up for a second round. If you look online, there's more. There's more application space available. Basically, COVID kind of happened, so I don't know, that the format is the same or anything. But I know that there's, if you have questions about it, there's a peterson.actonnba.org has like a frequently asked questions. I won't really go over them right now, but basically, so people were just saying that, because it was so early in the program, that like they need the students as much as, the students need them. And some people were angry because I think they thought that they were going to get like hands-on time with Peterson. Peterson heavily like endorsed the program because he was a huge part of it. He's a thread all the way through, woven into it, into creating it, into the whole ideology. He agrees with it because it's in line, it's congruent, it aligns with his beliefs, and it's built around him, and I'm sure that's exciting for him. So absolutely he endorses it. People were mad because a lot of them were not going into it for necessarily the right reasons. They were going into it more as an act of just being a fan and thinking that it was going to be like some backstage pass, into the mind and world of Jordan Peterson. They're going to Austin, Texas, mind you, and doing a lot of the work for the first part remotely. Jordan Peterson lives in Canada. But I mean, if they're going into it for the right reasons, if they really just agreed with his philosophy and stuff, there's no reason that they should have had an issue with it. I can understand absolutely them having an issue not being sure, if someone was just using Jordan Peterson's name. And that's sort of been, debunked, essentially, if you will. I mean, his name was used to promote it, but he was absolutely, right there, making sure that people knew that was valid. And then him using them, like he wasn't using them. If anything, if anyone would have been used, it would have been him. But it was legitimate. So people trying to say that it was some sort of scam, that's wrong. If I need to make another video to refute Sayula Bibi's video, the Progressive Voice, this video, I will. I'm not being critical of this channel, but it just seems like they have a lot of misinformation. So, anyways, moving on. The last thing that I'm going to say about this whole fellowship thing that he kind of starts off his whole thesis and his idea with is that people were saying that they thought this was like some kind of liftoff point for like the Jordan Peterson enterprise to lift off into the university stratosphere, so to speak. That was what someone literally said on Twitter, but that's wrong. They're saying that they thought it was his first venture into the business realm of university, and they think he's trying to ascertain his prospects of building a university as he envisioned it, but that is speculation. It's I mean, people are saying that also that he made money because his name was on it. He got a massive return on the signups, but that's not a known fact. And yeah, people are going to make money off of stuff. He also put work into designing it. There's no reason he shouldn't make money off of it. Someone's using his name for his sake and his ideas. And it's something that is, people are going to use to get places. Having his name on there is going to present a lot for people. And the pricing sounds very reasonable. That's pretty cool. The sort of promissory idea without interest. But yeah, he's a thread in it, but he's not by any means the main benefactor. I wouldn't go as far either to say that he's a glorified name drop, as some people are saying, because he really did put a lot of his own philosophy into this, and he reviewed it thoroughly, comprehensively, to be sure that it aligned with himself and his values, in order to really, have integrity with having his name on there. He didn't want it to be like meaningless or anything like that. And the Sander guy who we're talking about, I don't mean to be disrespectful, I just haven't read that much about him, but as far as he's into like deep learning and stuff like that, he's the main founder, he's pretty brilliant himself. This is not some pop-up university has crap, accreditations. It's accredited through like a main source for that part of the country. And yeah, you wouldn't find it on some obscure infomercial with an annoying jingle that gets stuck in your head. This is a competitive school, and it's yes, they were selecting a lot of people, but there are multiple phases to the entry process, and ultimately they pick 50 every time. So it's not like they said it was competitive and then had a bunch of people show up and just had them all. Hey, like it's still only 50 at the end. So